You know me, most of you, so I'm the designer of the LEGO Technic Land Rover Defender 42110. It was revealed yesterday and at the Frankfurt Motor Show, and I'm here to answer all the questions you can possibly ask. Whoever wants to ask, just go ahead.
Okay, I can start then, if you don't mind. What's the reason for picking the 3-doors edition and not the 5-doors edition of the Land Rover?
There's no particular reason. We just agreed on that because we thought it looks more robust and like more capable in the terrain, but it doesn't make the 5-door version any worse or any less capable. I don't think so. We just basically agreed from the beginning that it should be the 3-door version.
Interesting. And one more question, if I may. It's I actually like this one. It's from one of my followers. Does it hurt inside every time you have to use the blue pin?
No, not at all.
Because of the contrast between the blue pins and the body color here.
Yeah, but that's the way our system is set up, and it's there for years already, just to help the children to find the pieces. Because I remember how painful was it, like 10-15 years ago, to find the right parts when you were building a Technic set where all the cross axles and all the connectors were black. So never again, please.
Okay, guys.
I butt in here with a quick follow-up question. What age would the set have to be targeted at for the pins to be black?
Like if it was all black, you mean?
Well, the long pins, for example, they could be black, maybe, at a certain age range.
To be honest, I don't know. I don't have a question. Since I started working when everything was the way it is right now, almost except for the cross-axle colors, hard to guess. Hard to guess. I can only speculate, and that's of course not good.
Okay.
White, olive green. Yeah. Because actually it's one of their launch colors, and we of course do not have like metallic Pangea green, which is what do they call their one of their launch colors, one of the best looking in my opinion ones. And we just looked at our color palette, and there were two greens that were close to the real one. One of them was the sand green, and one of them was the olive green. And the sand green is too close to the original Land Rover. This one is closer to the new Land Rover, so that's why we picked the olive green. And I think everybody's happy about that. At least I am, because I think it looks really good, and it's the first LEGO set to be launched in that color. Hope that answers your question. I can't hear you, Yegor. No.
So, green. Will we see these colors in the future in other models, or it will be forgotten like other sets?
Okay, let me rephrase if I heard you correctly. Are you asking if we're gonna use the color in the future, right?
Yes.
Who knows? Who knows? We just open the doors and let's see where it leads us, honestly.
Okay, may I?
Of course.
How much earlier did you know about the new Defender design than the rest of the world?
Well, as soon as we started working on the new Defender, we basically knew that there is something happening. We didn't know how it looked, so we had to come to their design studio and see it. We as well got like some 3D renders from them, but yeah, basically since we started the project, so
when was the
last February.
Sorry. When did you see the real car for the first time?
Last February. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, good. Now I'm just checking my list, what has been asked, what not. I don't want to immediately go inside
Okay, then I might answer Alexander's question and you just get yours ready. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
Right, so the new wheel arches. Actually, I think it was quite easy. Sometimes the thing that might look complicated turned out to be the easiest in the design process, and it was just basically agreeing on all the angles and how the chamfers should be and where it should be cut and stuff like that. With Land Rover designers, basically they had to approve the design of the wheel arch. So they needed to agree, like, okay, this is almost correct, this is almost perfect. We can agree that this is gonna look good on the Lego version of the Defender. And building it with system, like you mean system parts. I honestly wouldn't probably go that way. We tried different versions with Technic. We tried as well replicating it with system, but the system versions never held together really well. The Technic versions were just too squared off, so that was the reason why we just basically went for a new wheel arch that could be potentially used in anything else, basically, if you want.
Okay. You talked about different iterations. Is there any chance that you might be able to share pictures of iterations of the model?
I can't answer that question because I don't know if I will be able or not. We still keep the prototypes in our design area, but I don't know if we will ever share how bad the first ones were with the rest of the world.
Well, let's change that from a question to a request then and see where it goes.
Yeah, we can ask, of course.
Okay, two questions, if I may. I noticed that the LEGO version uses wheel hubs with 6 poles, while the real Land Rover has 5 poles. What's the reason for the difference?
Actually, they have this wheel in the I think they have it in the configurator. At least they are going to launch this wheel eventually if it's not out there yet. I didn't check myself, honestly, but it was agreed with them that this is a wheel that they are going to launch, and this is the wheel that looks the best on the LEGO Technic model. So that was, again, mutual agreement. About the smaller scale prototypes, Igor, we originally tried to build different versions in different sizes. So yes, we had bigger ones, we had smaller ones. Okay, yeah, so Igor says it's in the configurator as a 20-inch wheel. I don't think that the other scales wouldn't work, but you know, we just went for this one because we thought like it captures the essence and feel and the overall proportions the best with these kind of wheels, kind of. So yeah, it was basically a choice. Like we just looked at the different versions built and we just went for this size of wheel. Plus, it as well fits nicely around the wheel hub, and you can make a nice steering with the proper offset, because I don't know if you've noticed or not, but you're gonna soon see it. Anyway, but the wheel has quite a big offset, so you can get the steering pivot point almost in the center of the wheel. Yep. Any other questions?
Sure, if I may.
Yeah.
What's so special about the most special transmission, most advanced transmission ever in LEGO Technic? What makes it different from, for example, the Bugatti Chiron's transmission?
There's one thing that makes it different, which is one extra input for changing the gears, basically. It has the same amount of speeds as the Chirons, but I can show it on the model. Here you have the 4-speed sequential gearbox, which is like the heart of the gearbox, and since it's quite big, it needed to be shifted in between the wheels because it wouldn't fit anywhere else if we wanted to have at least some interior details. like seats, for example, would be nice, right, in a car. That way, basically, the whole gearbox needed to be slimmed down over here, and it took quite a while to get it just to 5 module width. And here you have the selector to engage the high and low gear, and here you have the selector to engage drive, neutral, and reverse. And this way, by the round 2x2 brake with the grooves on the side, which gives you nice friction between the fingers, so it works perfectly well. You can change between the 4 speeds, so it's very, very compact, and yeah, the space is like fully used basically. The whole Land Rover is just a beautiful, in my eyes, cover for a gigantic gearbox. Plus, there are some extra functions on the side, obviously. Thanks, Alexander. We actually visited the Land Rover Jaguar Land Rover Design Center. We drove the new Range Rovers and the Land Rover Discovery. Surprisingly capable cars with the regular tires that you can find in any street, but as soon as you take them to terrain, those cars turn into monsters and just crawl over anything and swim in anything. Basically, we turned the Land Rover Discovery into a submarine in part of their driving range. So yeah, just driving in 1 meter deep water, that's really something that other cars can hardly do. And of course, we were not allowed, we didn't drive any older cars. We just basically drove their active range of vehicles they had at that time, which means excluding the new Defender. Yes?
Okay, I always have questions if nobody else does. What are the benefits of this particular suspension design? Because it seems like suspension is a big part, very important part of this set.
Do you mean like independent suspension, or the way the shocks are placed and everything around it?
How is it different from other LEGO sets? What's special about the suspension in this set?
In this case, basically the whole model weighs almost 2 kilos. Without 14 grams, it's 2 kilos of bricks, which is quite heavy. The good thing about it, it's the suspension was basically tuned and tuned and tuned, so it bounces on over anything. Basically, it drives, and even if you hand carry it with your hands, it just like as soon as you walk, it starts moving the suspension. So I just think it reacts perfectly fine while still keeping the car off the ground if it sits just as it's supposed to. So the shocks are not like too compressed, so you can still see how it bounces, but works perfectly well.
So you use red shocks in the back and a combination of white and red in the front, so you use different force springs for the suspension?
There was a reason for that, yes. Basically, the real Defender has very slight angle of attack when it drives. So the nose is like slightly, just by a few degrees pointing downwards. And just to mimic that, I made the front suspension softer, so it sits basically a little bit lower. That's the only reason for that.
Okay.
Why don't LEGO return to extra long shocks? Are they expensive in production? They can substitute double short ones. Well, why don't we bring again the monorail and stuff like that? Yeah, basically the part is discontinued. We are using what we have in our assortment, and we are building with what we have in our assortment. And I actually didn't need any longer shocks. Plus, if you take a look over here, I wouldn't be able to squeeze them in the car if I had the long ones, I'm afraid. It would be very tight fit, at least, in the front.
See the massive pieces. Have you needed or have you designed any specific new elements for this set aside from the mudguards?
The wheel rim is actually a new design specifically for the Land Rover so far, but yeah, it might be used in future models. Who knows?
Okay, but aside from that,
I don't think we needed anything else except for the right color. So it's just a lot of olive green and new rims, new wheel arches, and regular LEGO Technic elements. Plus as well as some system ones, of course. Like the shoulder line, as you've probably noticed in the images, couldn't be done with using Technic elements. Otherwise, we brought like something totally new or something that we could clip in the pinholes of the Technic beams to make the curve. So we just had to use system parts. Possibilities of motorization. Well, you can motorize anything if you want, but I wouldn't recommend this one. Definitely not. Because the gearbox, of course, is geared down from the wheels up to the engine. So if you try to plug in the motor, I am afraid you will hear very bad sound from cracking gear wheels. So please don't do it.
Okay, I'll move in another one then.
Yes.
Under the hood, you have a 6-cylinder engine inline. Why
Yes.
did you use this engine design?
Why did I go for this one? The same principle as I used in the Mack truck. Simply because I couldn't fit inline 6 with the engine blocks we have, the regular ones that use the moving pistons. It would end up like somewhere over here, and compromise afterwards build of the gearbox and compromise the overall proportions of the cars. Like even squeezing the gearbox inside was a very tough challenge. And if I open actually the rear door, you can see that basically there is not much space due to the opening and locking mechanism of the door, and there is not much space in front of the gearbox or behind the gearbox.
Another compartment on the roof. In the pictures, I saw a couple of spare elements in the box on the rack.
Yes.
Is there any specific meaning to those elements?
It's this basically. It's the second input for the steering. It's the hand of God steering. In case you want to display the model without it, you know, obstructing the overall design, you just place it inside here. Job done.
Okay.
And actually, if you're very careful and want to remove the roof rack, which you can easily do, like this, and display it without that, then you still have the holders for the storage box and the holder for the traction mats. If you detach them properly or dismantle them properly and store it very neatly inside the storage box, all these elements do fit inside. So you don't lose these ones basically. That's as well the reason why the storage box is kind of big. But I thought like it's a neat idea. In case you want to display it differently, you still have a storage for the elements, so you don't lose them. All right, just quickly, Igor. Adjustable suspension was never in the game, I'm afraid. We never even discussed that remotely. Like, why should we introduce adjustable suspension in the set? I think everybody was totally fine with the independent suspension as it is with the shock absorbers. So, no, we haven't tried at all. The gearbox, the hardest part of the model. It took a lot of fine-tuning, I have to say, but the same amount of time took the tuning of the suspension and making everything kind of fit together. And honestly, the part that I rebuilt probably the most times were the headlamps, because the original sketch models had always, like, I spent a lot of time with it, but if you take a look over here, the indicators were sitting half a module lower, which is not very realistic to how the Defender looks. And I was always trying to find a buildable way. It doesn't matter that I didn't find a way, but a way that would be buildable for 11-year-old kids and older, of course, audience. And finally, I managed, basically, and that's how it ended up and made me really happy and proud. But yeah, there were other challenges about this, but fitting everything inside the car was the biggest one, because the car is not so big and the gearbox occupies tremendous amount of space. That's as well the reason why, if you saw the X-ray view, that's the reason why we have 2 offset cross axles with universal joints, because if I didn't offset the gearbox, I couldn't just fit the whole thing inside.
Did you have to make any technical choices because you're representing a Land Rover?
Again, please?
Did you have to make any technical decisions, technical choices because you're representing a Land Rover? I'm not talking about the bodywork, but about how the mechanism works.
Of course, I took into consideration, like, yeah, I wouldn't be able to squeeze in 8-speed gearbox with high-low gears and drive neutral reverse, but I hopefully made the second best option given the space in the set. So I wanted definitely like one gear shifter that engages the drive, neutral, and reverse, and I wanted high-low gears basically. So it was one of the things that definitely needed to be there. Of course, the inline 6-cylinder engine is something that had to be taken into consideration, and the fact that, of course, the old Defender had totally different setup for suspension. This one uses full independent suspension for all wheels, so stuff like that needed to be done properly. Yeah.
We know that there is no B model for this set. Is this because of the license? Does the license owner dictate that there is no B model?
No. There's just basically no B model because it's a big set. Yeah. I'm just looking at the questions from Yegor. We started working on this particular model, like the whole cooperation with Land Rover started already before, but on this model we started working last year. What other functions options you discussed? For what? I will get back to you. Just write your question, please. What is the set's place in the Technic lineup? Do you consider it to be another supercar? Is a new special category of set? I just consider it to be a LEGO version of the Land Rover Defender. Honestly, it doesn't fit anywhere. It has right now its own special box, I would say. But it's, in terms of like the functionality, it is a supercar, but not very typical one. It's an off-roader. If that answers your question. Yeah.
Okay, nobody. Then I have a question. You have previously designed the Extreme Adventure set, which was also an off-roader, somewhat similar. Were there any similarities between designing the Extreme Adventure car and the Land Rover?
Not so much, I would say. Like, yeah, the type of the vehicle is similar. The way we introduce the accessories in the Extreme Adventure, like, plays on a similar note, like the Land Rover Defender, but it was a big wish from the Jaguar Land Rover design studio to have the accessory Explorer pack on top of the Land Rover, and we were totally fine with that, because we always try to like enhance the play. You know, steering is fine, and you know, bouncing on the suspension is fine, but if you can like store things or remove things and place them underneath the wheels and pretend that you are stuck in the mud, that just, you know, tells another story totally. Otherwise, function-wise, I think the only thing that is similar to the Extreme Adventure is the winch design, because I came up with that and I'm still pretty happy with it. I just tweaked it a little bit, and of course it was a bit more difficult over here because I had very limited space in front of the engine, so the winch basically goes here and the input is up here, the gear wheel that you rotate over here. But the way the function works is very similar. Yeah, I heard some jokes like that as well. I don't think we get any functions like not approved by Land Rover. Actually, we always like brought more every time we showed them the model. They were getting more and more happy with what we came up with. And of course, at the beginning, actually, I wasn't the only designer working on it. It was me and Sam. You've probably heard that information on Eurobricks, but it was in the initial phase. Afterwards, I took over and built the gearbox and everything, just to finish the model off. But yes, he was a great help at the beginning.
You have a locking mechanism on the rear door. Why do you not have locks on the doors to the front?
Yeah, I can easily show you. Basically, since we are using the panels for the main structure of the doors, we have only 4 pinholes.
Left? In the model?
Sorry?
Can you move the model slightly to your left?
To my left, this way.
Yeah, so we can see the whole door. Thank you.
Okay, fair enough. I can see it perfectly fine over here, but yes, just let me know if I need to move anything anywhere. The reason for that the locking mechanism is not here is that we actually needed this section to support the structure of the window, basically. So that's why there is no lock for it. We just decided to go for this basically cross axle, holding the door handle horizontally. But on the other hand, you know, there's as well other details that you usually do not get in the cars, like the grab handle over here, and there's even a side pocket where you can store very tiny Lego parts if you really want to. Is the body easily removable from the chassis? Nope, not at all. No, it's definitely not easy to do it. Like some sections go easier than the others, but you can't remove the whole top as one piece.
I think one of the very strong points of the Porsche, the first special supercar that you did,
yes,
was that it was with a very minor modification, it was possible to separate the body from the chassis.
Yes.
Which allowed you to see what was going on inside.
Yes.
It was one of my major disappointments with the Chiron. I really liked the model, but the fact that you can see almost nothing of what's going on inside is is sad for a Technic fan, in the sense that, at least in my experience of Technic, I like to see what's going on, not just while I'm building it, after I've built it. It appears that in this model you can see at least some of that through the back door and behind the seat. So in that sense, the fact that you cannot separate the structure from the chassis is not as, okay.
Yeah, you can see the gearbox right over here. Yeah, you can see the same pretty much from the other side. This way. And there was as well one of the things that I wanted in the set was that you can actually see what's going on if you care about gearboxes. So you can tilt the rear seats forwards, and the whole four-speed sequential gearbox appears.
Yeah, I think that's
you get a full view, and then if I just shift the gears, then you can see how the wave gear shifts between the speeds, and as well if I had more hands and stopped 3 wheels and was able to spin the last 4, you would see as well the gear wheels engaging.
Right. I'd like to ask about tires, if I may. Did you at any point consider using different, maybe new kind of tires for this set? Because the tires we have used are very simple street tires that we have seen on countless sets by now. And wasn't the Defender a perfect opportunity to introduce something new here?
It might have been, honestly, but we decided not to, because we of course have other models in the assortment, and we just decided like the wheel arch and the new rim are more critical than the tire. Plus, if you put the simple street tires on the Defender, which you can have, then it's going to look very similar to this, because the tread is not that high on the road tires. So yeah, it was an option that we had in mind, but decided to choose these two elements instead. Yeah. The price category of the set. I think it was never a problem for me to fit in the category given, so I was definitely not limited in this case. I actually was able to put everything I wanted, and still it was fine. Everybody was okay with the price of the model. Part count is almost the same like the GT3 RS, but price is cheaper. Does this mean the set will not be packed in premium package as 911 and Chiron? No, it doesn't have premium packaging. It's a regular Technic set. So it does have very big box, but it doesn't have like premium separate boxes to build the gearbox sections and whatever separate sections for the box just to hold on the rims. No.
Are there any parts of the model that you would have liked to brick build but ended up doing with a sticker?
Honestly, if you look around the model, there's not that many stickers visible. And surprisingly, most of the stickers actually are just here inside the doors. I think every door uses like what, 6, 8 stickers, something like that, all together basically, like 8 stickers for both doors, which is almost like a half, I think. And the stickers are very small ones on the model, so I tried to brick build as much as I could. The other detail actually that originally we discussed if we should put a sticker or try to build it from the elements were the signature tail lamps, because that's something that Land Rover calls squircles, which is their special term because it has a circle inside just to remind you of the old Defender, but it has a square outline on the outside that lights up when you start the engine of the car. And that's something that I think looks pretty well built from Lego, using basically 1x1 round plate underneath a transparent 1x1 square plate. So yeah, we try to build as much brick build as possible. And the other section that uses quite a few stickers is just just these ones, basically on the top of the car. But yeah, you couldn't build that from bricks. And Defender logo and Land Rover logo, of course, can't be built that small in such a small scale. Historical facts in the booklet. I'm not sure, to be honest, right now. I'm not sure. I don't have the instructions with me. I could answer that tomorrow, maybe via email if you want or whatever, but yeah, I don't have the instruction booklet with me, so I'm not sure if there is any like history walkthrough from Land Rover Defender, or if it's like totally just regular SKU, basically, without anything like that. Sticker aluminum imitates fake aluminum of real model? Where exactly? We didn't use small stickers inside the doors actually, and the way you apply them is quite easy. Like the rectangle that you place inside the biggest section on the reversed side of the panels could be maybe a little bit tricky, but I don't think it's more difficult than applying 1x1 sticker to anything. It's actually much easier, and the other ones are long and straight on full beam, so I don't think applying any stickers over here is gonna be any problem for anyone. On the bonnet, I don't know if it mimics actually fake aluminum. I have no idea if there's fake aluminum on top of the Defender or not, or what material is it made of.
To me, it looked like some rubbery material similar to the ones that you see on certain European cars now. Citroën has a number of cars that has the cactus, I think it is. It has like a rubbery substance on the doors.
Yeah.
It looked like something like that on the bonnet of the.
No, I think it's metallic actually. There's like something that that might be rubber actually, because I think on the old Defenders at least you could like maintain the engine from there. You could stand on it basically. So I think it at least mimics the same purpose. I don't know if it can be used for that purpose or not, but yeah. I'm not expert on the real Defender, unfortunately. I'm expert only on this one.
Okay. No questions? A funny one then. When do you plan to include windshield wipers in a model?
I already did.
You already did. I missed that. Ooh,
Sorry?
too bad. I missed that then.
Yeah, it was on the B model of the Volvo wheel loader.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
And trust me, I tried to fit them here, but it just didn't look right.
Okay.
It would probably help if you had a windshield in the first place.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. But since we can just put our hands through the car, then can you build 5-door version using 2 sets? You can try. Yeah, there's nobody stopping you from it. I haven't tried it myself, so but I think it could be possible to a certain extent. Like it might not be perfect, but yeah, you can try.
Okay, I have to ask, have you been tempted to build a classic Defender, not the new one?
Honestly, not really. I basically was asked if I could replicate the new Defender. I was like, is there a new Defender? So yeah, I was more than happy to build a new version. I didn't build the old ones, even though some of my colleagues built prototypes of the old ones, just to start discussion basically with the IP partner.
Because it seems like with the licensed cars, LEGO is leaning heavily towards very new cars, right? There is no, as far as we can see, there is no concept of maybe building iconic vintage cars from the history of motorsport.
No, if you look at Creator Expert, they are doing a pretty good job with classic cars, I think.
Yeah, but I'm talking about Technic specifically.
Yeah, not yet so far. Do you have ideas for B, C, and D models out of this set? Of course, you can build a bird, and you can build a crane, and you can build anything you want, to be honest. Dinosaur, yes, of course.
Nice.
You can do whatever you want with the set if you get it, of course. All right, any other questions?
Just a second, I may have some more.
Yeah. You are suspiciously smiling. What does that mean?
There are so many questions we just can't ask because you won't be allowed to answer, you know.
Yeah, there are questions like that.
Yeah, we don't know that. But let me try asking, is the Land Rover license open for future exploration, or is it like a one-off cooperation between the LEGO company and the Land Rover company?
To be honest, I'm probably not the right person to answer this, but never say never. And I think our relationships are very good, so yeah. Might be that we collaborate again in the future, but of course if I say yes, then you will be disappointed. If not, if I say no and we cooperate with them, you will afterwards blame me for lying to you. So I don't know, honestly.
Okay, if you had the room for one more feature, any feature in this set, what would it be?
That's a tough one. Honestly, I don't know what else should I like pack in this. Like, you could give the gearbox more speeds just to have the 8-speed gearbox as the core, but I don't see any other potential for anything else that I could squeeze in or needs to be there, honestly. Do you have any ideas what should be there?
It's a small thing, but I was thinking about the possibility of putting the spare wheel on the bonnet.
Spare wheel on the bonnet, but I don't think they offer this option with the new one, honestly. And especially with the LEGO version, since it's a bit thicker, you would see absolutely nothing if you were a driver in the LEGO model. Functioning lights. Well, functioning lights usually require batteries, and as you know, the Technic battery box is not the tiniest one, so yeah. Would be nice, of course. Yeah, Ladoniva has spare wheel under the bonnet. Well, there's no space, unfortunately. I had to completely rebuild the bonnet as soon as I found out it needs to be an inline 6-cylinder engine, because my assumption was, of course, using the historical fact, basically the highest spec Land Rover is using V6. And that is not true anymore. So just to be able basically to accommodate for the pistons, the panel needs to be oriented lengthwise. Originally it was like across in one of the builds, but it wouldn't work because these ones would be hitting on the bonnet all the time. So you will hear like clicking all the time as soon as you would drive the car, and maybe even just the bonnet jumping up and down a little bit.
Those are not stickers on the inside of the bonnet, are they?
No, there's nothing over here. It's just
seeing something, but the definition is so hazy. Ah, now I see. Okay, nice.
There's some extra details like the airbox and like the piping and whatnot, but yeah, no stickers in there as far as I remember and as far as I can see.
Okay. So which part of the set makes you particularly proud?
Which part? Honestly, the whole thing. The fact that I was able to squeeze so much in such a tight space makes me really proud. But again, as I said, you know, being able to almost perfectly brick build the head and tail lamps is quite an achievement for me. And of course, it's my biggest gearbox so far and most complicated one, definitely. So that's as well something that when it was ticked off and tested and working, I was like, phew. That's a relief.
Speaking of which, do you think that gearboxes this complex in a model without motors are still practical for the builders? Is there still fun factor?
I think it's educational factor, definitely. Like, you know, it shows you closer basically how the gearboxes in off-roader cars work. Yeah. I mean, some people are whining if there is no gearbox. Some people are, of course, super happy if there is no gearbox. But yeah, the decision was made that it needs a manual gearbox. Why only 4 T-pieces underneath the bonnet? Well, just because it looked like that from the images we got as a reference. So I tried to get as much detail as I could without sacrificing the build around. So that's why there are 4 T-pieces. Maybe I was wrong, but the reference looked actually that there are just 4 pipes going from the side. Yep. Of the actual car, you mean? I worked both with renderers, and I got to see the unfinished version of the Land Rover Defender. last year. Yes. So both, but of course, like, yeah, optimally we would have it parked in our department, but it was of course not possible. And sometimes translating the 2D version into 3D and using LEGO Technic pieces can be quite tricky. But yeah, we are used to that.
Did you use a reference piece to decide the scale of the model, or was it decided by the size of the gearbox, or how did you size?
Actually, we started with the discussion around the sizes of the wheels. Then the size of the wheels dictated the size of the wheel arch, and afterwards the wheel arches dictated how small or big the model can be. And then, of course, my task was to squeeze in the gearbox, yeah. No, actually, the prototype we saw was like 90%, 95, maybe even accurate to what we saw yesterday in Frankfurt. So it was very close to be finished. All right, the time is up. So unless you have any last questions. Not in Denmark, definitely. Not in Denmark, because it unfortunately fits into the too expensive range of cars, so no. No. But I wouldn't mind if I was given one, honestly. It's a great looking car. And like yesterday, I was walking around it for several minutes and just like absorbing the lines and the details of the car, and it looks so good. Like the images do not do it justice. Basically, seeing it in the flesh, that's like something totally different. What is the offset different? I think it's one module, but I'm not sure. I didn't measure, and I don't have any wheels around me right now, any of the same size rims, so I can't compare it. Unfortunately, you will have to wait a little bit and see for yourself.
Now we see you.
We can't hear you. Sorry. We're getting some robotic sounds only. Yeah, no worries. Thanks as well, Alexander. It was a pleasure. Alrighty. So one last question is that?
Are you looking forward to the modifications that people are going to make to this set? Because I'm betting a lot of people are going to motorize it.
Yeah. We can't stop them from doing that, of course, but they shouldn't definitely just plug in the motor and let it go. It wouldn't sound nice, and it wouldn't work, definitely, I'm afraid. Yes, of course. Like if you totally, dig out the gearbox, then maybe. But this model is not designed for motorizing from scratch, so you need to do some customizing yourself. I will definitely read your reviews. Yes, I will. Trust me. I'm always interested, and I as well learned during my years and experience at LEGO to not take everything personally. So I will not be offended if you don't like the set. Yeah, I tried my best, and take it or leave it. Basically, that's. I tried to deliver the best building experience, the best play experience, and just fit as many functions as I could in this model, given the time and the resources.